were talking, the students were engaged in problem solving, and we're really thinking about, you know, that question that we often hear from kids, well, how am I going to use this? How might I use this? That's what this week was about, taking the idea of exponents and the idea of modeling and thinking about, as a human being, beyond the mathematics classroom, how this applies to so many different aspects of our lives. That's our fourth classroom. Thank you.
All in a week. I hope that you've noticed, and our team would like to draw your attention to the titles that really are a part of the vision of the learner up at the top: scholarship, personal development, citizenship, creativity, and innovation. So you've heard through the comments, I think, so far tonight, that we're driving toward those elements of the vision of the learner through each of these settings, even with our youngest learners, and despite the content, right? The content is irrelevant. Again, it was through the lens of the model for high quality instruction in every instructional setting. And I want everybody here to pay particular attention to the top of the model where it says engineer to engineer. Perhaps one part of HQI Live that makes this such a powerful and impactful, authentic professional learning experience is two features. One, that it's largely directed by teachers. Dr. Pataya will often remind us it is teachers that are leading the work of high quality instruction across our classrooms. So you've heard about the teacher moves throughout, and also engineer to engineer. After we visit the instruction, we're in the kindergarten classroom, we're looking at the regatta. After that, we go back to a very large room at Foreign High School. It's an awesome facility for this. And there are 115 of our Milford Public Schools educators engaging in inquiry and discussion through this model. And that was largely facilitated this year by Beth Gilman, who is right there in the back from Foreign High School AP, Sarah Lipp, who's one of our primary teachers at Calf Penn Meadow, Kirsten Mason, who's there in the back again, who is teaching in that regatta classroom, and Amy Rizzo, over here, a teacher leader for professional learning. And Julia Goriev is not here, but she was also a part of it, and Sarah Monaco in the back. Is Julia there? And I just can't see. No, Julia not. But Sarah is in the back, one of our other teacher leaders. So you can see that there is a tremendous amount of support throughout the district to guide this kind of professional learning and planning and implementation. So we're going to give you a little sneak peek into what the week really did look, sound, and feel like. And Ken, can you help us press play there? Thanks, Ken.
a great teacher. The way she put everybody's ideas together, especially the quote, I was like, wow. Because it was really fascinating how you made everybody understand each and everybody's other thoughts. So I think the leadership was a very good idea, and I think we should do it more, like throughout school.
I also wanted to relate to Tracy's work, Janelle. She did a very good job with summarizing what we had talked about at the end and being able to put it on the board for us to go over as a class. And it's like real school, except a lot more freedom, and we get to, instead of having to listen to one person, we get to listen to everybody else and their opinions and ideas.
Like, we're not doing that stuff that's that much different. Like, when you get to the core of it, it's teaching kids how to think and how to problem solve and how to work together. And that doesn't matter if it's a math problem or a piece of Play-Doh. I mean, those are those core skills that cross all the boundaries between all the disciplines and all the age levels.
Because learning is fun, right? Being curious is fun. And so that's that one thing that I know that I want to make sure that I bring my bag of tools that I've learned from this week to make the classroom fun, a place where there's curiosity and it's interesting and that there's movement. And I would couple that with the unknowns, right? We literally got the class list 10 minutes before we went in, right? And at first, I used that word of trepidation, nervous. How great. We have no idea, we have no idea if someone has, like you said, you know, an IEP or this. We just met them where they were.
I'm actually a high school teacher here, so this was the first time I got to see a classroom with students of this age group since I was their age.
Well, love that.
Amazing.
The experience.
And what you were doing, I was so interested in seeing it. What really struck me, and I'm wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on your thinking and planning related to this. What really struck me was the high level of independence that your students had. As a secondary teacher, I don't really get to see that whole gradient typically across the district. I was immediately struck by how the students worked independently, how they were really guiding each other independently.
I used to think that kindergarten and high school were two completely different worlds. Now I see that teaching and learning in those environments isn't all that different.
So pretty powerful, right? I don't know if you heard what Frank Tupko was saying. He's a high school teacher. He said the last time he was in a classroom with students of that age was when he was a student himself, kindergarten rising to first grade. So one of, I think, the most powerful experiences from the teachers that were participating, the facilitators of the adult learning, is really the commonality in high quality instructional practice, again, across grade levels and across content areas. So we did want to signal to you that our model for high quality instruction is now under construction. So one of the things that we love about this model is that it really is reflective of the engineering process. It was our best thinking at the time, and now we've implemented the model for a few years, a few HQI live seasons, and throughout those school years. And we, one of the things that we did ask the participating teachers and facilitators to engage in this past HQI Live experience was, how would you revision the model? Give some feedback now that we've implemented this model. So what we will be doing in the months ahead is taking that feedback to our team throughout the system and thinking about the design process and bringing forward a new V2.0 version for high quality instruction. Something that the teaching and learning team also wants the board and everybody to know is that you really have to think about curriculum and instruction together, right? We've made a significant investment in a curriculum revision calendar, a curriculum revision cycle. Want to remind the board of our system improvements and the curriculum revision work that we set out ahead for this 22-23 school year, varied across grade levels and across different departmental areas. One of our commitments needs to be to couple the curriculum that is revised with high quality instruction. in every setting, in every classroom throughout the school system. You notice that, you can't see it, but I know you've seen the graphic before. In that center of that circle, it says professional learning all the way around. So one of our exciting opportunities in the year ahead is going to be to think about how do we lift HQI Live experiences during the school year. The power of this can't rest in only the 6 days in the summer. So we need to think about building the systems and structures to incorporate experiences where people are having professional learning opportunities similar to HQI Live throughout the school year. Some very concrete areas ahead where we will be thinking about high quality instruction and coupling curriculum and instruction in our work is, of course, as Ms. Gaffney mentioned, our work in intentional play, which is absolutely a demonstration of HQI in early childhood settings. Through our staffing model of instructional coaching, Ms. Morrow mentioned this, the power of collaborating regular ed teachers, special educators, and instructional coaches across settings is incredibly valuable. Just today, we kicked off our Milford Teacher Academy, welcoming just over 40 of our newest staff, and they've all had a very strong introduction to our district model, so they'll be able to lead with that as they join our classrooms. The board is aware of our work in Milford Measures, and Dr. Patai and I will continue to talk with the board about measures for the impact of high quality instruction in our work. I've just mentioned a little bit about the implementation of curriculum and aligning our curriculum with high quality professional learning experiences embedded throughout the year for our staff. And then certainly that will come in the form of the HQI experiences, lab sites, et cetera, that happen in each of our 14 sites in the year ahead. We want to really also thank, like Ken is here from our bids department. There are so many people to thank, and this is a really big endeavor and commitment. We of course want to thank our Board of Education for your continued support in the work and for making this happen for each of our roles in the given system, but Ken and the bids team who provided all of the tech support throughout the week. Our food services people that kept us very well fed and nourished as our brains were working so hard. The foreign high school custodians and Miss Gilman who left no detail unturned and unnoticed that week. Thank you for hosting foreign high school. Our obviously featured classroom teachers that you've met here this evening, our facilitators of the adult learning, our administrative assistants. Of course, everybody knows, right, Ms. Griffin, that the power is really with our administrative assistants. Manchester Public Schools, they were our guests. As you know, HQI Live is getting a lot of recognition throughout the state, and they asked if they could join and see what we were doing and be a part of our action research and study. And the Partners for Educational Leadership were in attendance and joining us. A significant thanks to our learners, our adult learners, the 115 plus participating teachers that came in to experience this over the summer, and especially our students who were the reason for it all. So our whole team of instructional supervisors, administrators, teachers, facilitators, teacher leaders, we are in this together, and we are all happy to answer any questions that you may have about this very powerful professional and transformative professional learning experience.
Thank you very much. Just quickly, you mentioned 115 educators. How many students total?
Each class had a range of, I'd say, about 15 students, would you say, in each classroom across the four? I'd say roughly 60.
Okay, thank you. Board members, do we have questions? Ms. Ratner.
First of all, I commend all of you for doing this, and you probably realize now you are better people, better parents, better friends, and everything besides being a better teacher, having gone through this experience. You have a new way of living now, and you question and you look at things completely different, and it gives me goosebumps, and I'm so thrilled you did it. My question for all of you, and up here, is, goosebumps when I ask it, the reluctant teachers, the people that aren't risk takers, I guess that you might have a little of that in you, who are hesitant. It sounds too scary. They want to stick with what they have. How do we entice them to grow? We need you.
Well, I think part of
That's
it.
your job. Yeah.
Sorry. I think part of it is that it's the experience that they've now lived. You know, having been a participant in season 1 and 2, really leaving invigorated to go try it in my classroom. So I think it's that little spark that you just get from being in the classrooms, debriefing with the teachers, and really just kind of referring back and continuously thinking about your why. and really taking something from that week and trying it out and thinking, what's the best that could happen with what I just witnessed in these classrooms? So I think that it's a twofold. I think you're right. There can be some reluctance, but I think just that the energy that you feel during that week can transform and can really inspire others to try it. And I think there's a little part of like, well, if so-and-so is doing it, I think I can too. So that buy-in just naturally occurs.
And I would just, off of that, just say like the culture that you feel when you walk into HQI Live. Last year I attended as a participant, and this year as a teacher. There's a buzz in the room. People want to be there, they're excited, and even, people that are reluctant were there and were saying, I'm gonna try this in my classroom, and we always encourage, like, try something really, really small. It doesn't need to be, I'm gonna change everything that I'm doing tomorrow. It's implementing these little things that really just make a huge difference, and no one's going to say, like, that was the wrong way to do it, right? Because it's trying, it's putting yourself out there, and everyone learns from it. So I think that there was just that culture created, in Milford through HQI Live.
And even to springboard, I'm sorry, off of the culture, I really would, I think you have to turn around and commend the people here and yourselves for the high level of organization that goes into the school system. Their support for teachers, right? We meet them where they are. We have coaches, we have team leaders, we have team time, we have administrators, we have in-house professional development, right? That you helped train coaches how to jump in the water with someone who's reluctant, what language to use, so that everyone can be a part of that fun, engaging learning.
I'm just going to piggyback off of Julie. So I was invited by Julie to collaborate with her this whole past school year. So this is I just finished my first year here in Milford. They had HQI labs in West Shore Middle School. And everyone was better than the last, and the teachers' feedback, even the ones that were reluctant. She's very persuasive. I don't know. But even the ones that were reluctant, we were there to support them. It was a risk-free environment. We walked them through it if they needed that kind of help. We backed away if they were ready to take the reins. We met and planned, and they got a lot of support, and then as the other teachers came and watched what happened, then they signed up. And by the end, people were signing up on their own because they wanted to experience it, It's very, doing HQI Live this summer for me was amazing. Like, it's very freeing as an instructor to be able to try something really new and almost risk-free in a way, as long as the kids were having fun. It was magical. Someone said magical tonight. It was amazing. The kids were amazing. But the labs really help bring in the reluctant teachers. They really do. I've seen it in a couple different middle school settings, and it changes their mind, and they want to participate.
And I kind of want to jump on what Kirsten's saying, because I agree. I think it's the labs that are key, because a lot of times teachers feel safe in their own school environment. So if we bring HQI Live into a smaller, more intimate environment, I think it's easier for some people to attend and see their partners doing it. And then, my guess, because I'm still kind of a newbie, is that it would make them more comfortable going to the largest setting in the summer. So I think that's totally, sometimes has to start small, and then it grows with power.
Thank you all.
Ms. Doyle?
Hi, thank you everyone. I really enjoyed that presentation. I have a few various questions, comments. First question is, can you just give a day, like a schedule? Because I'm having a little hard time kind of understanding where the teachers are, where there's 115 teachers and then there's 3 classrooms or 4 classrooms, and how are people kind of divided in that space? Because it would be very overwhelming to have 30 teachers watch over a classroom of 15 students, and then to have
It happened.
teachers.
It happened, yeah.
And then it seemed like there was a video of the teachers doing the same projects as the students and things like that.
So it's a 6-day endeavor. Who wants to take
I
care
was
of
gonna
day
say, it
one?
would be better coming
Yeah.
from you than us.
I can do the schedule. So we start every morning.
you would think we have the times by now. But we start every morning as a community of the whole. So we start as all 115 adults together. Based on the teachers' feedback, we actually invited the guest teachers in at the very start of the morning, about halfway through the week, because they wanted to hear their preview and their plan for the day. So the other thing that we haven't mentioned tonight is that we are responsive every day. So every day we have an exit ticket with our adult learners, and we change our plan based on that exit ticket. So we start together as a community of the whole. We do some adult learning, so we talked some about feedback, we talked about wait time, we talked about a variety of things. We set the teachers, the adult learners, up for what they were going to look for in the classrooms, and then we sent them off. For the first 2 days, we asked that they stay in the same classroom so they could see a progression of learning. And by day 3, they were free to go to any of the 4 classrooms and move and ebb and flow between them. So I know, Alicia, at one point, I don't even know how many people you had in your room, like 50?
Mm-hmm.
And you would think that it would rile the kids. They went with it and thought nothing of it. When the 90-minute lesson is up, then we come back and we debrief. So we put our guest teachers on the spot and ask them questions about how the day went, what the lesson was like, and then we usually close the afternoon with some further adult learning. So we were there, I think, like, was it 8 to 1? 8 to 1 every day.
And so the students are there from 8 to 1 as well?
So
or
the
just
students,
the
so
90
we
minutes?
did it a little bit differently with the youngest learners this year, because for parents, we wanted to make sure we had a little bit of a longer block of time. So our youngest learners arrived around 8:30, 8:45, and they were there until noon. Our older learners, it was a little bit easier for them to ebb and flow, so they were just there for a little bit before the lesson and a little bit after. But our youngest learners, we provided snack afterwards, and we had some adults who were there just to kind of encourage them to use the materials and be there. So our youngest learners were there from about 8:45 to 12 every day.
Great. And so the other question, comment more so, is the intentional play. As you can see, the intentional play throughout the entire process is the learning of the research starts and you find the information and then you carry it forward and you go from there. And that's what I've learned from talking from friends and parents in the district is that have kindergartners are very excited about this idea of my child can solve a problem and think about where they need to go and where they can find the information. And it's really great to see this incorporated in the students who are the learners. I'm in school full time, and sometimes I watch my classmates and I'm like, there's a problem, solve the problem. And I have to keep my mouth shut because I can solve the problem, but it's not my job to solve the problem for them. And so it's nice to hear that we're teaching our students in the district to understand how to attack a problem, and it's not just the problem, it's a stepwise situation and decision, and to start with the youngest learners is really great to see.
Very good. Ms. Whitten? So a couple times during the evening tonight in the video and as you guys were talking, you talked about meeting students where they're at, right? I don't know how long that phrase has been around, but it is a favorite of mine. You know, just like we as, or you as instructors meet students where they're at, I'm gonna make the assumption that this HQI process also met you where you were at and took you somewhere and gave you something that you're gonna bring into the classrooms next week. And I am just wondering if maybe we could briefly hear something that you are going to bring into the classroom next week because of this experience.
I'll go.
You don't have to raise your hand.
So one thing that, you know, meeting the students 10 minutes, you know, before really, or half hour before the lesson starts is, you know, you have no idea what they know. You have no idea what they don't know. And it was amazing to me to see myself let go a little bit because, you know, teachers are type A. We're very we like to micromanage our classroom. We like to, you know, teach everything before we introduce it before, you know, we give it to them. So I didn't do any of that at HQI Live because I didn't have the time. I didn't. So that's one thing I'm going to take back to my classroom is giving that agency and that power. I'm not going to put name tags on the desk. They get to choose where they sit. I'm not going to put their materials in their own pencil boxes. They're going to be around the room and they can freely get them when they need to. So really just letting go of me having the power of my classroom and giving it to the students, which I practiced and tried this summer and it worked. And it was powerful to me. That's what I would take away.
That's amazing.
So I'm also gonna take away, well, Alicia, like a little bit more of that, right? Cause I try to do some of it, but watching HQI, you realize how much more you can do. But I am a first grade teacher and I help facilitate, so like I'm totally out of my comfort zone. So that's something personally that I'm gonna take back this year is, to be more open and helpful to those coworkers and grade partners and, you know, other teachers who might be those who are, we talked about, not quite ready to jump on board yet. But to take that, like, I know that I can do it and I can, you know, kind of help in that aspect. So that's something that personally I want to take back to the school year this year too, in addition to with the students.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Ms. McDonough-Souza?
Thank you. I would like to echo everything my colleague said about how great the presentation was, and I always enjoy hearing from the students. They crack me up, and they're so intelligent. I love hearing from them. This question might be better for the administration. Dr. Fedigan, you had mentioned that you want to continue doing this during the school year, and obviously we had a lot of challenges the past 2 school years. So do you have, and I don't know if this question is premature, but do you have an idea of how you can do this? Because, you know, 6 full days in the summer is, you know, there's more time available. Like, is there anything that like the board can do to support this? Like, do you have, is it, I mean, we're not talking weekends, are we? Like, I mean, where's the time for this? Because teachers and staff are so busy as it is, and they give so much to the students that I just want to make sure that we can like support this and yeah.
Well, I will say that we have talked about HQI Live Sleepaway Camp. Because there is, right, this team has, because there is such enthusiasm. So we have not gone into weekends yet, but, well, so Dr. Mataya, and I'm sure will want to add, I'm sure, to these comments right now, but we are going to be meeting with our administrators and teams of teachers across the 14 sites at the very beginning of the school year, most especially because of actually what Ms. Boyton just mentioned. We want to make sure we're meeting children where they are in their classroom, we're meeting teachers where they are, administrators, where we have to think about where we are, right? This is really a responsive, authentic experience. So it will not be a cookie cutter same approach across the 14 sites. We can say that, and I know we'll keep the board apprised as we move along. One of, I think, the most important takeaways for the board to continue to think about as we move forward is this is a significant investment. So when we're talking about writing curriculum, when we're talking about matching that with responsive professional learning, that does take time. It takes an investment of time for our teachers to be able to collaborate and sit engineer to engineer. That's really, I think, the value of what our colleagues have mentioned tonight. So we will likely be talking with the board about the design of professional learning and the continued supports for making sure that we can meet our educators, meet teachers, administrators, all of us where we are in the process, be responsive to that and continue to invest in time and collaboration and resources and materials. You're welcome. Great. Else have any questions?
Yes, Ms. Zerby.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I enjoyed the enthusiasm in the teachers and the students and what they're able to get out of the activities. But how did you find assessing the students to be? Like, or where does the assessment fit in the whole process of the HQI Live project?
So I think a lot about assessment because a lot of my work is so data driven as a math teacher. And when I went into this process, I knew that my student skill levels would be all over the place. So actually the assessment, like I reassured them on day one that this was not going to be something entered into PowerSchool they had to stress over. And really that, you know, when the video cameras came in, that it's not just about like, what are they doing, but it's about what I'm doing. Because I know that the work is really going to be used to help teachers see teacher moves. And what I wanted to model in the classroom was that it's not that failure isn't an option, it's that failure is okay and it's part of learning. And that the actual assessment piece isn't, I'm not looking for their failures as an indicator of whether or not they get it. I'm looking at, are they willing to embrace attempts, and are they willing to try to stick to a task, and are they willing to own their work and own their learning to keep going at it. So really for me, the engagement in the task was really my success criteria on most days. So when you ask about how do I assess the student work, I'm asking myself, am I finding a way to engage every student? Am I finding a way that every student in the classroom has a voice? Am I looking to see, is one student feeling like they're being marginalized and not really having a way to engage? Because one thing I learned from hearing my students, I couldn't hear them on the day, but when I went and asked, because I'm nosy, and I'm like, what did they say about it? Some of the students were saying, well, yeah, for the past 2 years, we didn't really get to do working together the way we'd like to. And so this was a foreign experience at foreign high school for some of these kids. And so we had to, there was a lot of adjustment, and it was really making them feel safe again. And so modeling that, that failure is okay, and that engaging in the task is the most important thing, and being willing to stick to something. That's how I looked at success in this. And when I think about bringing it to my colleagues in this school year, that's what I want to model, is that if we do it for our student learners, we should do it for our adult learners as well. Is that trying something new and being willing to go out of your comfort zone and engage in something new to further your understanding as a professional is what education should be about.
Just want to add to what Frank said, and just say that we really talked a lot about like process over product. Like we weren't really worried about what the end product was going to be. It's how the students were getting there, and that's really where our assessment took place. Was for the youngest learners, they have a hard time voicing and orally speaking to their thinking, but they were able to show and draw and build and explain while they were doing it, and that was really what we were looking for, the process.
And I'll add to that. So we focus primarily on ELA standards and NGSS standards, the engineering process. And I think we decided early on that we were going to do non-traditional assessment. And it's a little bit more work for teachers because you're not handing a quiz or multiple choice quiz, a test or something. So it was exit tickets with student feedback. It was the students creating their own success criteria, which can actually show you what they understand about what their task is, and it was listening to their conversations with each other. So walking around, listening, taking note. Afterwards, we would get together and say, do we think they're heading in the right direction? How can we support them tomorrow? So it really is this idea of three-dimensional learning that's from NGSS and non-traditional assessing of learning, skill-based.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So I just want to add my own feedback. I had the pleasure of visiting the rising first grade class just a little bit one morning, and it was pretty amazing what the kids were doing. And it was equally amazing to see the feedback from the teachers and the interest in the teachers. So it makes me so happy when I see all these shaking heads, yes, that it was a positive experience and that you really feel valued and supported in Milford Public Schools. I mean, that's just, as a board member, there's nothing that makes me happier than to hear you say that. And I did want to ask, do you have a sense over about how many, like what percentage of staff at this point have had an HQI experience?
We had 28 teachers year one. Season 2, I think, was 35, and 115 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And we have about 650 certified staff members.
Do you have a sense that most of those teachers have stuck around?
Yeah, there's a high, I think we experience a high level of retention anyway.
Okay.
So if you want to think that that's causing it, great. And I think where you're headed with this a little bit is my answer to the question about how can we get this into the school year?
Mm-hmm.
Because 100 teachers in the summer is fantastic. It's pretty darn good, but that leaves out many others. So we really have to think about our in-between work.
It is pretty amazing that you have that many teachers that will come in for a week during the summer, and I'm sure there's benefit to it for them, but besides the learning experience. But that just speaks volumes, and to have this many of our staff members come out on an evening right before school's about to start to present to us is equally as amazing, and I thank you so much for doing that. It's really important for us as a board to get this feedback, just to kind of validate the work that we do and that we're doing. We're moving in the right direction ourselves. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
If I could just close out with a few comments, Ms. Glennon. It is critical that we hear student voices, and something that we haven't shared with the board is on Thursday of the experience, so day 4, we actually hold, we cut class short a little bit, and we do a round table with the kids, and we ask them some poignant questions, and you caught some of the answers there, right? So I think that points to what we're trying to do at Milford Measures is hear our students' voice much more directly about assessment in a way of process, like how are kids experiencing schooling? We want to hear from them. So Thursday is a little snippet of that. It takes an incredible amount of courage, so I want to personally thank in public Gretti and Ashley and Frank. Sorry, I'm like at the very moment, Mark and Kirsten and Julie for really putting yourselves out there in front of our colleagues. And I know it takes an incredible amount of courage to do that, and you did it so skillfully and openly. So not just with kids in front of teachers, but then you were grilled a little bit afterward and asked questions about your practice. And you're demonstrating the culture we're trying to build in Milford, that we're opening our doors to one another and talking about this incredibly difficult job we have, and that's teaching young people. So public words of thanks. And I don't want it to go unnoticed that we looped in some teacher leaders into this process. So if you're watching season 1, 2, 3, and put your eyes on 4, you're watching administrators back off a little bit. So while I co-facilitated year 1, I basically attended this past year. But we brought in Sarah and Amy to co-facilitate, because we really want this to be led by teachers. And at the core of what we do in Milford, we believe in teacher leadership. We're hoping that HQI Live one day will be fully run by teacher leaders. So I'm grateful for those who took it on despite some trepidation. So I hope the board will remember this, right? When we are together in January talking about budget. Let me just be direct. Because you know me to be nothing but that. But, you know, Dr. Fedigan already mentioned the structures of professional learning and our dream to do this during the school year. Well, there's only so much time in a day, so there may be some budget implications, and I'm hoping that you'll add to your list of questions, Dr. Pitaya, what are your plans for HQI Live Season 4, and what are the implications for this in the budget? Cindy, you're nodding with a big smile. I know that question will come from you.
I'm remembering it. I gotcha.
And a big thanks to the admin team who really made this happen, so appreciate it. Thank you for making this such an incredible experience. I would have never dreamed it to be.
Yes,
So
thank you
we're
all.
going to excuse them, right,
Yes.
like we do the kids. So thanks everybody. Don't feel like you need to stay for policy work.
Fun times are over.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Nice experience.
See you in the morning.
So I called her Ashley, it's Alicia.
Okay, don't worry. I'm Ashley Kelly.
That's right. Always Kelly to me, Alicia. It's hard.
Yes. Eileen, do you mind propping that door open?
It's very hot in here.
See, right? I was gonna say, you know all about that.
Yeah.
I know, I'm warm here.
Don't ask that question.
I think just for this room, just for this room. Oh,
That's a loaded one.
That is. Ms. Glennon, can we go on to policy?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So before the board are 3 policies for a second read, and we'll ask that you will be voting on these this evening. Excuse me. So I'll call your attention to 5141 first. Any text that's in blue are changes that we made based on feedback that you provided us. I will share that there was a question that we were given about the sixth paragraph on the first page. The paragraph starts with a member of the board. We have counsel with us here, Ms. Carolyn Dugas, as well as Joan Campbell and Dr. Carlson, Health Department, our medical advisor. Thanks for joining us for these policies. We were given the feedback that if it causes too much confusion for any board members or you believe the public as they're consuming this policy, that the last sentence of the sixth paragraph can be stricken, just to clear things up. So I believe we made all the changes based on your feedback that were minimal in this policy in total. Happy to take any questions in preparation for approval.
So Ms. Wolfoyt, I think that was your question.
Yes, so what is the answer to the question? Which is specifically, do we pay for these health services to be in the private schools?
No, I can answer that question.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Pursuant to a particular statute, which is 10-217A, it's very, very clear that the obligation falls on the town or a regional school district. So it is not the obligation or the responsibility of the board to pay for those same services that are otherwise provided to public school students, to students in schools, private, nonprofit schools. So with that, I made the recommendation belatedly today that the whole paragraph 6 be removed because it really doesn't necessarily belong in the board policy. It was reflective of a legal obligation, but not of the board. And just as an aside, I did a little conversing with other attorneys at the firm that maybe are a little more versed in budgets and work on the town side a bit more, and it was made clear to me that the town itself, in their budget, has line item budgets for those costs that were referenced. And additionally, just to clarify further, in case you had been wondering, like what are health services, it was never intended and does not apply to special education services, so that was never even on the table. At some point in time, there was another iteration of this statute that may have resulted in health services like the provision of a school psychologist to those schools or some remedial services. That in the current iteration of the statute is permissive, not mandatory. So largely what we were talking about was the provision of nurses in the schools, and just as I consulted with Joan today, and she advised me that, again, as a practical matter, just as a way of background for you, there's two schools that this applies to in Milford currently, and that would be Laurelton Hall and St. Mary's, and they do have school nurses assigned to those schools. But again, to answer your question, that is not paid for or an obligation of the board.
Of us, okay.
Okay.
So Mrs. Glennon, I don't know how it would be done properly, but I love the suggestion that we take that paragraph out.
Okay, I think the first line of that paragraph perhaps should stay, that a member of the board will be a liaison person to the health department, because that is in fact correct. We do have a liaison to the health department, although it is unfortunately not filled at the moment. But if the rest of if Attorney Dugas is okay with the rest of that paragraph coming out, then
yes,
unless any other board members object, we can take it out, and then we would adopt this policy as amended this evening. Anybody object to taking those lines out? Okay, then we'll take them out as long as Attorney Dugas says we can. Were there any other questions from board members on this particular policy? I do believe that all of the other items that we brought up have been addressed. Okay, seeing none, Mr. Fowler, do you have a motion?
I do. I motion that the Milford Board of Education approves Board Policy 5141, Student Health Services, as amended by administration.
Is there a second?
I second.
Ms. Ratner has seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, board members. Call your attention to policy 5141.3, specifically deals with health assessments and immunizations. Again, we have a member of the health department here, Dr. Carlson with us. Ms. Campbell is happy to help us answer any questions. The blue text specifically on the first 2 pages provides additional language in the area of designated representative to receive reports of health assessments. On the second page, some language just to clarify, I believe based on feedback from the board last time. The ever so confusing on page 6 and 7 about midnight, April 27, and the day of, April 28. I think there are giggles from the audience because we all had difficulty processing that when the legislation first came out. So we believe we have it right now on pages 7 and 8, the midnight of 27 or day of 28.
6 and 7.
I believe those are all the changes since our first read.
Okay, I had one concern about the sentence that was added in an attempt to clarify that very thing. On page 6, the very top. So in blue it says, in order to allow a religious exemption, students must have presented a valid exemption prior to April 28, 2021, parentheses, that is by midnight, April 27, 2021. Then what was added was exemption statements presented for the first time on or after April 28, 2021 are not legally valid for excusal from statutory immunity requirements on religious grounds. Then it goes on in red. Such students retain this exemption through grade 12, even if the student transfers to another school in Connecticut. I think that the sentence, that the blue sentence, exemption statements, should be after such students, because the such students retain this exemption refers to those that have submitted a valid religious exemption. It's saying that those students.
Yeah, Pam had asked me about that, and we
Okay.
had agreed that
Can be
makes
changed,
sense.
okay.
That makes sense.
So it would just move that sentence to the end of that section. And is the word or needed in there? This right here, this word or.
No, that shouldn't be there. I also saw a couple other Scrivener errors on I don't know at what point you want to look at those, but
Okay.
whenever. Okay.
So we're not striking that sentence, we're just moving it to the end of that section. Any other questions on this policy? No? Okay. Mr. Fowler?
A motion that the Milford Board of Education approves board policy 5141.3, health assessments and immunizations as presented by administration.
Your second?
I second.
Ms. Ratner has seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll bring your attention to 6142.10, which has minimal change since last we spoke and is related to health education programming.
Yes, there was just one small change on that. Any concerns or questions from the board about the changes? The policy as it stands now? Seeing none, do you have a motion, Mr. Fowler?
I do. I motion that the Milford Board of Education approves board policy 6142.10, health education program as presented by administration.
Is there a second?
I second.
Ms. Ratner has seconded. Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Well, want to thank Dr. Carlson, Ms. Campbell, Ms. Dugas.
Yes.
We're all set with that,
We're all
right?
set. Yep, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
It's easy.
Thanks for doing such a great job with that policy.
Yeah.
We aim to please.
15 little errors.
Yep.
So I'll talk to you tomorrow?
Yep.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, I'd like to bring your attention to the next item on the superintendent's report, that's enrollment. In your packet, you should have a new, updated, we're not shutting that door again.
No.
No.
But
Thank you, though. Otherwise, I'm melting. No?
No. No, they just have to,
Change it.
They don't have it, thank you.
Right.
I have it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I will call your attention to the law and foreign numbers first. Those are the numbers that, if you were just to strike out the word law and write foreign, and strike out foreign and write law, then your spreadsheet will be correct. So, our apologies to the board for that mix-up. Okay, so with that correction, I will give the cautionary warning sign that it's only August 18th numbers. And this was based on last Thursday when we published it. So you should not put a lot of weight into this number. Like, people are still registering, we're still getting withdrawals, it's so early. So this is just a nice little update to the board. On October 1st, we'll have hard numbers for you. We would have already seen the whites of the children's eyes and they'd be sitting in the seats. So I will share with you that on October 21st of 21, we had 5,358 students enrolled. And our projection, as we identified in the budget book, is 5,291 students for this school year. And on August 18th, we're sitting at 5,314. Budgetarily, on the elementary classroom section side, we are at a break even. So we are at budget for elementary sections. That is always a little bit of an issue for us because we have classes we add and we don't exactly bank classes on, hey, just in case. So right now we're at the exact amount of elementary sections. At this point, our rule of thumb is if the numbers go below the cutoffs, we do not collapse sections because class lists are already published, kids are already set to go somewhere. But if there are more students that show up and go beyond our cutoffs, that is 20 in K2 and 23 in 3-5, we will add a section. Causes a little bit of a disruption, as you can imagine, because class lists are already published. But our priority would be to ensure that class sizes are in a place where we want for all kids. So we watch those numbers carefully every single day. And right now we're in a good shape. We have a couple elementary sections that we're watching in the event that we have to add classes. So right now we are a little above, about 22 students above projected in total as a school system. But again, cautionary label on this message, very, very early.
So the 1021 total figure that you mentioned, I think you said what, 5358? So where did you get that number from? Because I printed
in the budget book.
Because I printed off the October 1st report from last year and it was 5373.
I have the
Just
budget book up on my screen, so.
Okay. Well, why would there be a discrepancy between the budget book and the actual report?
I don't know, we'll have to get back to you on that.
Thank you. Ms. Petrosky asked me to ask one question on this. Under PPS, there's I don't remember ever seeing this before either. It says included in average class size. Do you know what that is meant to mean?
I could answer that.
Thank you.
Okay. We have, in some of our elementary schools and 2 of our middle schools, programs that are largely self-contained. But as much as possible, when those students are capable, we have them participate in a regular ed classroom. So these numbers include those students who spend a good portion of the day in a self-contained classroom, but will spend some time over the course of the year in a regular education classroom. So those numbers include all the students at that building.
Okay, so just using CAFPEN as an example, it shows that there are 6 in that column, PPS included in average class size, so those students are also reflected in the K5 classes where they would go, where they're assigned to, or,
Yes.
okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the enrollment report? Preliminary enrollment report, the very preliminary enrollment report.
I don't.
Yes, Ms. Doral?
Sorry, I don't understand what you just were saying. So going back to what Ms. Lennon said is, so in CAFPEN, there are 6 students within the fully of the school who are both in the self-contained and then again accounted for within the classroom.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, board members? Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Glennon. We'd like to move on to the Human Resources Report. Ms. Capazza?
Thank you.
Thank you.
In my report, you have the current listing of job postings, which is of course different because it changes every day, as well as the personnel changes for the month, the retirements, resignations, terminations, and stipend appointments. There's a few things I'd like to point out. I wanted to let everyone know that we have hired 38 teachers so far this summer, and we are about 5 out from being fully staffed in our teaching staff. We have about 5 more positions to fill, and we're well on our way to filling them. In fact, I sent out a job offer right as we were coming in here. Couldn't talk, but I definitely emailed. So we're actually, I mean, as much as you see on the news that there's a teaching shortage, we are in good shape in Milford. So that's the good news. The bad news is we're still looking for some non-certified positions, lunch aides, paras. I think we have quite a few of those open, but we'll be able to open school with the staff that we have with, minor shifting. We held a job fair a week or 2 ago, I can't even remember what day it was now, where about 50 people came in and met with us one-on-one. We did on-the-spot interviews, and as a result of that, we were able to get about 10 to 12 hires, and it was all non-certified, so no teaching positions, but all the other positions that we do available. We were able to get quite a few hires out of that kind of on-the-spot job fair. We started our Milford Teacher Academy today. Today was day 1 out of 3, and it was a great success. I think Dr. Fadigan will attest to that as well. Tomorrow's day 2 for our one-day day 1 over at Grassy Hill. The good news also on retirements and resignations. I know I try to give you the count every month, and many times over the summer we do see quite a few retirements in the teaching staff, and we've only had 1 so far. So 1, we're at number 1. Only 1 retirement over the summer, and I really don't anticipate August 22nd that we will have any more retirements this month. So that is the good news as well. I think that's it.
Any questions for Ms. Kapasna? Ms. Doral?
Hi. So is the plan to do the building subs again for this year? Or
Yes.
Okay.
So this year we've allowed, we're hoping and anticipating that we'll have better luck with substitutes, but of course we're very, we're on a wait and see approach. But we have authorized 1 building sub per elementary school and 1 at the academy. Now, we do have a built-in kind of substitute help as well as training for new teachers in our internship program. So in a normal year, a high school would get 2 interns, a middle school would get 1, and every elementary school would get 1. We, since the pandemic, are finding that perhaps less people are going into teaching, unfortunately, and we're not getting the internship names and applications that we normally get. So we're trying, that's our first priority, is to get interns, future teachers in our buildings. But if we can't staff our buildings with 1 intern per school, we'll give them an additional building sub. So that's where we're at right now. And again, we are hoping for the best, but we just want to see once school opens how the substitute pool goes, and make sure that we hopefully have enough.
So I have a hypothetical that may not be answerable. Is in a typical school, assuming COVID didn't happen, assuming that this year is going to kind of be semi-normal,
Hopefully.
how many absentees and teachers substitutes do you need in a typical day in that sense?
That's a loaded question, I don't have the answer to that, it obviously varies from
Right.
time of year, and people's illnesses and pregnancies and whatnot. I could get you a rough number at some point, but typically, just to give you an idea, September will be pretty easy, there will, any absences that we have, we will have already known about. So somebody out on maternity leave, somebody out for surgery, just because we have a lot of lead time leading up to September. Around the holidays, it gets a little dicier, cold and flu season and COVID season or whatever we're gonna call it. And then, it kind of gets a little bit better again, and then towards the end of the year, it gets.
Okay. So then it may be easier for me to visualize and think about is last year in a I remember when it was in January or February, we had
218 absences.
218
Right.
absences in one day.
Correct.
That is not obviously typical.
That is not normal, right? Typical would be under 100.
Under 100.
Yes.
And that
then
includes
that's what you're-
certified and non-certified.
That includes anyone that needs a sub, so certified teachers, non-certified as in our paras, I think that's about it. Yeah. So under 100.
Okay,
So we saw, we saw numbers over 100 almost every day last year, which was atypical. So hopefully those numbers will be back down, and with the addition of the building subs and some, core group of regular subs that like to pick and choose when they can work and where they can work.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll get through okay.
All right, great, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Krasna? Okay, I see none, we can move on, thank you.
I'd like to continue with the food service year-end report and introduce Ms. Fustich. Do you want that podium moved up a little bit?
Good evening. There's tough acts to follow in this evening. I'm here just to give you the financial report for the year. It's a summary of the entire year. We had a really good year this year. We sold 756,173 meals, which is huge. It's 191,000 breakfasts and 564,000 lunches. So we are really feeding a lot of kids this year. As you may know, or you may have heard, we've had free meals for all students. So it's free meals we can feed all students without charging them. So it's free to all. And I think that families and students have taken a real advantage of that. It's really helped out as there's rising food cost and expenses and families. So, and that benefits us as well because we feed more students, we get more reimbursements for our meals. So we've done really well this year. Some of the revenue that we've gotten in is higher this past year because annually we get an increase in our federal reimbursement for all our meals. But this past year, in January, they gave us another increase of reimbursement to help us make, pay for expenses that have gone up a lot, especially with the supply chain and so forth. So, and then they also gave us some other grant money for supply chain towards the end of the year, and we got our state grants toward the end of the year. So that's why we have a larger balance than we have had in the past. And what we do with that balance, like right now we have, we ended the year with $475,000 balance, which is much larger than I've ever had. It has to be the largest I've ever had. So, like last year we ended it with an $88,000 balance. This year, I'm very conservative. If you don't know that, I don't spend money I don't have. So, having a lot of revenue come towards the end of the year, I didn't spend it on expenses. I feel like I need to carry over some of that, which I'm allowed to do in the food service program. We don't get a budget at the beginning of the year that we have to spend down to zero by June 30th. We can carry it over, and we have to carry it over because we need money we need cash flow to be able to pay our expenses. And we also replace equipment, and pay our bill, pay our salaries, pay for food costs, which has gone up, supplies have gone up this past year. So that's why it is a lot of money, but we need it. We need to have a balance. We've been spending, you know, $300,000 a month on expenses, so you need some kind of a cash flow. So that's, although that seems very high, what I have, there is plans for it. So we're gonna, you know, spend it on some equipment replacements. We also have increases in the Connecticut minimum wage is going up, as well as our negotiations, so we need some money for that. And so one of the things that I wanted to share with you that's very exciting, really exciting, so I get to use this time, not just the Podium, it's very exciting. So I'm just throw this out of the way because I want to show what we've been doing this summer and spending some money on. I don't know how many years ago, but I don't know, 12 years ago or so, we painted the storefronts, which is like the serving area in our elementary schools. And so they were all the same, all 8 of them were all the same with, it said build a tray, and it was purple and lime green, and they were all the same. So this year, I decided that since the kids are coming back in the elementary school to the classroom, I mean from the classroom that they've been eating in for 2 years, they're coming back to the CAF for the first time. So I really wanted to make it really welcoming for them, and so we're able to personalize it a little bit and get some painting and, you know, sprucing it up a little bit. So I'm gonna show you 2 storefronts that we completed. Let's see, I don't know how to use this thing. Okay, so Orange Avenue School, this is what it was before. You can see the purple banner on the top, build a tray with posters. So this summer, last week, we were able to clean everything up, take some things off, paint the storefront, and then you can see what we have.
Ooh.
So this is, it's now gonna be Leo's Den, which their mascot obviously is the lion, and he's really adorable, isn't he? And the school colors, and I worked with the principals, so they put their messages on there, so it's a great day to be a lion, for appetites on the prowl, and then there's a couple signs that I can't read, but it's kind of like enjoy your day and stuff like that. So, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
It's very exciting, at least for me, I don't know, and I think, but they're excited too, the principals are really excited, it's like.
They are.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Right? All right, and now I have next one. Similar to Orange Ave, that's the before, this is Calf Pen Meadow, so. Now this is very exciting, because this one really lends itself to the cow pasture, and I don't know if you can see it there, but there's a bunch of cows on the fence, right? And so they're talking, and they're saying Calf Pen Meadow Rocks, and it's make moveless choices, and yes you can, and choose kindness, and you're part of our herd, relationships matter, and then go, grow, glow, or something like that. But it's very exciting, like this is,
Yes.
we're all loving it. So anyways, so the next one, all right, this is just links to like all of the elementaries are gonna get something like that this week or next, hopefully. It's still a work in progress, but definitely Meadowside, Orchard Hills, and Live Oaks. Still working on the last 2, with the exception of Pumpkin, who's getting a brand new cafeteria, so we're gonna wait till next year for that. But, can you select foreign?
Yes, I can.
The other one we worked on this past week was Warren High School, and I don't have current pictures because it's not quite done, but I can show you what it looks like in the design, and it's pretty close to it being what it is at Warren. I just didn't want to bring up pictures that weren't clean, like, you know, like they're still cleaning up, and I don't want to put the desks and stuff, cleaning materials and things like that. So, in the under foreign.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be populating any pictures.
Can we try a different one?
Oh, well.
How about a different school, Ken?
Sure.
Can we swap cap pen?
I don't know, maybe it just, I don't know if it works on my computer and not this one, I'm not sure.
You can send us, you
I
can
will,
send us
as they
pictures and
come
stuff.
up, I'll send them, you'll.
We'll put them in the
send
board
them.
update.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
That'd be great. It's fun to see. I'm glad you're excited.
It's really exciting to have a project. So, back to the financial report, not as exciting or colorful. So next year, this is big news. This is big news. We've been wanting it to come through all year long. It's been a question of parents and students. Will the free lunches continue? And so we got word this month that they are going to continue. It's slightly different how they pay for it. We still get reimbursed based on the family status of whether they're free, reduced, or paid. So we have to keep track of that as the children come through the line like we always did. But we are given a grant so that we do not have to collect money from the students for at least the first 3 months of the year. We got a grant for $760,000 to make it through, and it's gonna last as long as it lasts. So I know when it's gonna end. There's just not a clean date because it's gonna go until the money runs out. So, but it's a good program. I think we can continue to help families and students eat well, and it allows us to transition from free meals for all and try to make it consistent, like the food that we're serving and the purchasing and things like that. And then it also helps the families transition to when they have to make sure they have money in the children's account. So that is all the excitement I have for this evening. Does anyone have any questions?
Board members, Ms. Doyle.
Thank you. I'm excited to see the cafeteria, especially when I see certain cafeterias that I remember when I was in middle school, like like Harborside. I remember when the Harborside cafeteria opened, and I was an 8th grader at Harborside. So when the money runs out from the grant, how much will it cost a student in each category?
Well, we were planning on it going up like 50 cents a meal, which is a pretty steep increase, but the expenses are what they are. But we haven't set the price yet because I feel like we can give it a few months and see. But I would expect it's gonna be 50 cents higher.
Okay, and so what are the current costs? What if there were no free meals and come the first day of school, how much would a student who gets a reduced lunch or pays full price pay?
You would probably pay somewhere between $3.50 and $4, depending on the grade level.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Ratner?
I agree with you, it's very exciting to see all those colors and the new designs. I'm curious who did the artwork?
I have a designer who did the designs before, like the Build-A-Trade before. It's called Imaginate Your Space, and they're out of Worcester, Mass. And her name is Casey, and so she does all this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much for coming to.
Ms. Fetcher, not so bad for following up all the other exciting presentations tonight, right? That was pretty good.
I had pictures in color.
I know. And good money news. I thought,
Good money.
yeah, very good money news.
I was happy.
You gave them a run for their money.
I actually have one more question. Sorry.
Yes, Ms. Doyle.
I need one more question.
I have one more, sorry.
Yes.
At some point, I thought the Connecticut legislature passed something phasing out foam meals and things like that. How is that? Where's
Yes, we're still planning to use the paper products starting this fall. However, I did also bid the styrofoam at the recommendation of my paper supplier, because depending on if we can't get the paper, we need an alternative. And I have to read up about what the legislation actually says, if it's just the trays or what. But we definitely are still moving in that direction of, like we talked about for a couple of years now, to transition to paper.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Now I'm done.
All right. All right, thank you.
So I'd like to turn things over to Mr. Vigicelli for disbursement report.
The exciting disbursement report. So, members of the board, in your package, you have a listing of all of the disbursements for the district for the month of July, in the amount of $1,500 or more, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
I'm glad to see the yellow lines are starting to
It's dwindling.
dwindle, yes. Board members, do we have questions for Mr. Vigicelli on any of the expenses that are listed?
I'll ask.
Yes, Ms. Doyle.
You have the two with unload storage trailers due to COVID and then rental. Is it like this month they disappear? Or how many trailers, we've combined, we've condensed, continuing that process?
We've condensed. At the height, we had over 80 trailers throughout the district.
Wow.
We're down to under 10 now. So, what, the problem that we have is, well,
the
problem
extra
or not a problem, if you recall, we had to buy a lot of extra desks, things like that now we have to store. So, we are looking at, different options, the possibility of, maybe some warehouse space, renting warehouse space instead of having, trailers off-site. We're not gonna have them on-site anymore, so, we would have the trailers off-site, but they're not climate controlled. We did have some problems with that. So we're looking at options of how we might store this equipment, because it's still usable. It's not usable to us right now, but, there may be some need for it in the future. The board will recall, I'll put a little plug in, when we do the capital improvement plan each year, we have a warehouse, building a warehouse, and we've said that it could go at Eels Hill, the old Eels Hill property. So we actually moved that up in your capital improvement plan, the one that you approved in May. So we're hoping that the city will see fit to fund that this year. I know there's a lot of other priorities too, but that will help us in so many ways to be more efficient, to really be able to take advantage of buying in bulk and things like that. So, and the bottom line is we want to get away from storing in trailers.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Vigicelli on the disbursement report? Ms. Ratner?
Thank you, Ms. Glenn. Speaking of Eels Hill, and we talked about it kind of dilapidated, we're gonna have rodents that'll be eating these things we're gonna store, and will it be cleaned up a bit by the city?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Before we built anything up there, we would demolish what's up there already.
Thank you.
Is that it, board members? Okay.
That completes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. All right, we have consent agenda. Mr. Fowler?
I motion that the Milford Board of Education approves the consent agenda item minutes for consideration July 11th, 2022 business meeting.
Your second?
I second.
Is there any, I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Any board comment this evening? Ms. Ratner?
Thank you, Ms. Glenn. I just want to wish everybody a happy, healthy, and secure, terrific, playful, marvelous year. Educationally sound.
Anybody else? Yes, Ms. Doyle?
First I wanted to say thank you to the New England Asian American Cultural Center that invited some of the board members to attend, and I was able to attend on Friday to the opening, and it was a really great event and great addition to our community to see all our students engaging in that. I'm also going to put in a plug for all our girls who participated in the Little League World Series, for the two teams that went all the way to their respective teams. It's great to see the athleticism and different aspects that are, it really, all the kids are having fun in Milford and being part of their community, which is great to see, and will continue as we move into 2022, hopefully. And knock on wood, normal year.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second.
Anyone opposed to adjourning at 8:42? Okay, we are adjourned, thank you.